Welcome to Built From Within, the mission critical podcast where we go beyond the project plan and talk about what it really takes to deliver mission critical infrastructure. I'm your host, Chris Brooks, a mission critical construction leader, a data center expert, and a CEO. On this show, we sit down with people shaping the future of high pressure construction, and we talk leadership, innovation, mental health, and what happens when the stakes are high and failure isn't an option. Because the best leaders aren't built by circumstance, they're built from within. Today's guest is Stephen Moss, Mr. Nice Guy. Starting out on a small island in Scotland and on to leading billion-dollar data centre projects across the world, Stephen Moss has built a career on resilience, trust and leadership under pressure. Welcome to this new episode of Built From Within. So we've got Stephen Moss with me today, who is a data center subject matter expert. So thank you, Stephen, for giving up your time and being with us today. So Stephen, obviously I know you have done some research on you. So your career has taken you across continents. You've worked in complex environments within our industry, but that's not where obviously it all began for you. So can you take us back to the beginning and tell us, what makes Stephen, and how did you get into this industry?
So it goes back to when I was about 14. I was lucky enough to be moved from Leeds up to Scotland. My parents did the good life thing, which was quite a shock to me, a 14-year-old boy going to a small island on the west coast of Scotland. I from there managed to get an engineering apprenticeship up in Scotland, which was a massive thing. There wasn't much opportunity for work, in those days. And obviously I was lucky enough to get 100% in an engineering test, which actually propelled me into my apprenticeship up there. From there, I moved back down to Leeds, where I was lucky enough to work for a company called Eaton Williams. They were doing the BT projects, where I managed to start to deliver small data centers. And from there, it went from small data centers to big data centers, from big data centers to hyperscale data centers. And from there, it went from data centers in the UK to Europe, from Europe to Asia, from Asia to the Middle East, and from there, Middle East to America. So it's been quite a rock and roll sort of career for me. Very, very lucky to have had this career from my very humble beginning. Obviously a small engineering apprenticeship to leading some absolutely fantastic jobs around the world, which for me, super lucky. And I'd like to thank everybody that's helped me on the way. I had sort of a basic education. I got 5 O levels. I wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but I was good at maths, and that really propelled me into sort of engineering. And from being good at maths, it took me on to where I've got to today. I think going back to my roots, I think the main sort of why I sort of did well in this industry was I had quite a good sporting career when I was a young kid. I had 3 school records at school. I ran at Yorkshire level. I went on to be in the man rescue, where I was, because I was quite a big lad, I was bringing bodies down from the mountains and obviously understanding what that's all about. I went on from there to winning the national championships at yacht racing, which really propelled my sort of my confidence, I think, is the best way of putting it. I think my confidence really grew from being sort of an ordinary guy to winning a national championship, when the guy before me was a pathologist, really, really helped my confidence, helped me sort of move forward in my sort of career, because I know I could do it, and through hard work, dedication, that's how I've really sort of got to where I've got to.
Yeah, interesting, fascinating background. And I've been an expat as an adult, and I've gone to a new country, new region with a new culture, and understand how difficult it is to fit in as an adult. So doing that at 14 years old must have been a bit of a challenge. So how did you manage to fit into that new environment? How did you build
relationships at that age?
It was very difficult, obviously, because I was sort of the only sort of English person in the school. Um, when I went for the apprenticeship, I didn't expect to get the job. I expected it to go to a Scottish person, and I think predominantly because I aced the exam, it really gave me the chance to get the job. I wasn't expecting to get it at all. And I think that it takes time, when you move to a new place, you've got to build trust with the people that, they've got to find out that you're a good guy and, overall treating people well and being quite a good communicator really helps and just going through that process really. And a
Yeah.
lot of the people that I became friendly with were people that had moved to the island as well. So they were in the same sort of situation as me. They'd moved there. They had to go through the same sort of process of trying to understand what it's like to live on a small island in Scotland.
hmm and I hear like trust used a lot in terms of leaders kind of go back to that as an answer quite a lot in terms of you need to get your teams to trust you, you need to get your clients to trust you. You've just obviously used a similar statement. So how do you go about earning trust? But obviously, it's not easy to just get people's trust. So, how do you set yourselves up so that you do earn trust from your peers and clients and
Yeah.
people
So
around you?
for me, it's been good communicator. Being there all the time, being a constant, making sure that your team understands you, making sure that your door's always open for them to come and ask you questions. You can go from there to supporting your team, taking pressure off your team when, the pressure's always there, especially in programs nowadays, and especially in data center programs where you could predominantly say that most people, if you take it as a race car, you're running the red zone all the time and you're running your team very hard. Um, Being able to have a bit of empathy, being able to talk to the guys, make sure that your door's open, make sure that they want to talk to you because they know that you're going to come in and step in and help them and take the pressure off them. And what I've seen over the years, Asia, Middle East, everywhere I go, is that when people start to work in this sort of red zone area, they start turning to drink, they start turning to drugs, they start having divorces. Their health can suffer from it, and it's a really big area where especially in the data center construction world, that you need to concentrate tremendously on. Empathy is massive here. And I think that if we could all learn quite a few lessons from this, because what I have found from working all around the world is that 99% of your staff that work for you want to do a good job. They really do want to
hmm
do a good job. They don't want to be a failure. They want to deliver. They want to look good and get this over the line. And sometimes it's just the constant pressure of the job that grinds them down, and then they start. It sort of unravels from there. Whether it's drink, whether it's drugs, whether it's getting divorced, whether it's health issues. And, we need to be looking at this as an industry now and really take this sort of mental health and this driven mental health into some sort of format where we can handle it to deliver these projects, really.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a subject that's close to my heart as well, and we definitely do need to do more as an industry around that. Um, I think obviously you've worked out in like I say Asia, Middle East, and most recently Kuwait. So away from home, away from your family and friends, going into again new teams. So does it feel similar to when you was a boy to as a man, and it's still the same core skills that you're deploying, so that early age you think it really set you up to help you thrive in your career?
I think it did. I think the confidence thing from the sport, and then obviously being thrown into an area just like that when I was young, up in Scotland. So I'm not really phased by, being dropped into, say, Kuwait or Saudi or Jakarta. It doesn't really sort of phase me. I sort of go with the process of doing a good job, working hard, communicating well, making sure that the people around me understand, and that I'm there to help them, not to beat them up and not to make them lose their job. I'm there to 100% help them and for the good of the job, to get the job over the line as quickly as possible. And that's really how I
Mhm.
sort of, my mantra, that's how I work.
Yeah, yeah. And then again, the mountain rescue stuff, obviously that you did, that's and sailing again, both both competitive, both environments where if you get it wrong, problems and issues can happen. So what did you take from both of those interests that you had? And I'm assuming are you still sailing now, or is that something that you've stopped doing? But what did you take from those things that you was passionate about, and
Yeah.
how do you kind of use those today in your
So,
career?
so I'll tell you about sailing. So when we first set off about sailing, the national championships, we came 300th and we were more or less last. We were a crew of 7. I was running the foredeck, and most of us were bits of joiners, bits of electricians, bits of builders. We had one planner, we had one architect on the boat. So we were sort of a mishmash of people. And what we learned quite quickly, and what I learned quite quickly, was that I needed to educate myself to be good at this. I needed to. And so what I did was I went off and I did my yacht masters certification, and that's where I met my wife. Um, and I also went around the UK to the Olympic wind and speed training courses. And so what I did from there was I learned how to do this and how to win. And from this, he gave me great confidence to to take that back to the team that we the small team that we had on this boat and sort of say, look, guys, I've been on this course. This is what we really should be concentrating on. And we took all these. And, after 2 or 3 years, we sort of got into the top 10. And then the next 2 or 3 years, we came third, and then we came second, and then eventually we won it. And my wife was on the boat at that time as well. So that was quite wonderful for me. Um, the, the actual reality is what I'm trying to say is you don't do anything by just turning up and thinking that you're going to be brilliant, because you don't. You've got to put
Hmm.
hard work, dedication, a lot of effort, a lot of knowledge gathering, and then if you're lucky, you might just win it. And we were quite lucky, and we did win it. But the bottom line is, what I'm trying to say is, a normal person can do this. I'm just a normal person, just like you, Chris, that's worked incredibly
Yeah,
hard and dedicate myself to actually um, trying to do the best I can. And I've sort of taken that mantra throughout my career. I mean, I've had some very high highs and I've had some very low lows, but I try to learn from everything that I go through in life and try and take the positives from that to propel myself onto, the next level and make sure I don't fall for that trap again.
yeah, nice. Yeah, totally agree. And nice story. Obviously, didn't know. Obviously, that's where you met your wife. So obviously, that's special as well to obviously for that relationship to come from that interest and passion. Um, you mentioned earlier about the about people in the industry and the red zone, and people have different paths, and some guys double down on work, I guess, and then it's quite easy to turn to drink and drugs. I guess that is a problem in the industry as well, which then starts having an impact on mental health. So how do you, or when you go away from home on long deployments, which you do, how do you kind of keep yourself straight so you don't get like deviated and sucked into those other areas?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, obviously, most of the areas I work in the Middle East, the dry zone, so you're not drinking anyway. I don't
Yeah.
take drugs. I don't even like taking aspirin, to be honest. I try and stay away from all that as much as possible. Um, the actual reality is, I think probably the thing that's kept me sane the most is playing golf on a Saturday morning. Most Saturday mornings I go there just to take my mind off not thinking about the job. It just gives you that little bit of a break. And go play golf with the guys. Play terrible. I'm not that great, but I love playing it. Um, and the bottom line is have an in, an interest out of work, because
Mm,
work is all encompassing when you're running these massive projects. They contact you day, night. You know, if there's been an accident, it can be in the middle of the night. You'd be jumping out of bed trying to deal with everything. It's very intense, and yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it.
So
I
when
have
you're
interests out of work.
Yeah. So when you're deploying then to a new region, it's suitcase in one hand and golf clubs in the other, I
That's
guess.
exactly it. Yeah, I can send you some pictures
Yeah,
on WhatsApp with my suitcase and my golf clubs packed at the same time. Yeah.
yeah. And that's obviously having that plan in place. So knowing that you're going somewhere, understanding the environment and making that mental decision that I'm not, I'm gonna force myself into playing golf or whatever it may be, cycling or going to a high rocks class or something along those lines, which then keeps you out of the pub because it gives you a purpose outside of just falling into, having a beer at the end of work.
100%. And the other thing that is from a golf point of view, what you meet is you meet some tremendous people in the golf club, and that are
Mm.
potentially working in the same industry as you, or can help you with, oh, great restaurant here, Steve, go try this. You meet some great people in these golf courses around the world, and just from that point of view, it just helps you living as an expat in that country.
Yeah, so like I say, there's a good lesson there. Good to do that prep work when you're going. And I'm the same. Whenever I work out of town or away from home, the first thing I do is find a hotel that has a gym or it's close to a gym that I can go and use. And for the same reasons, just so you
Yeah.
don't get sucked into going and sitting in the hotel bar after work. Um, so obviously you became an electrician or electrical engineer, went back to your hometown of Leeds.
Yeah.
It fascinates me how many people, certainly in the data center industry, that are at the top of their organizations, VPs, presidents that started out life as an electrician. So it's obviously a great starting point, obviously. So when did you realize that being an electrical engineer or electrician was more than just that, and this was basically, how you was going to spend the rest of your life?
Yes. So for me, obviously, I went to college in Glasgow. I went to Springburn, Glasgow Tech, Cardonald, year after year, and I wanted to understand how, how to have my own business really. And so what I did was I explored all the courses so I could do the pre-construction, and I did this at college. So, you could take a school and you could price that job and take it from the bottom to the top and understand how to do that. And so that was what I tried to do in my younger career, which I was quite successful doing. And from there, what that did was propelled me not just as an electrical engineer. I moved straight into the office because I got the qualifications to do this. And then from there, I started to learn the business side of this, the project management side, the pre-construction side of the business. And from the pre-construction side of the business, what that did was propelled me into the business side, the dealing with the clients, and because I work hard, I build trust with people. I started to get a lot of work. I took Eaton Williams from 2 million to 30 million in 2 years, where I was running the BT contract. From there, I built. You might not know this, Chris, but I did what we consider the Wi-Fi in the UK. I built that for BT. I was one of the senior managers on that.
Yeah.
So I was very, very, sort of intense on trying to learn things as I've been going. And I think the key thing from this is that any normal person can do this. And if you're a young engineer out there, please listen to these words. You can go out and you can absolutely get yourself a great job, earning really decent money, and be able to travel the world from quite humble background. It's possible, and now I'm living proof of that. And I want everybody to understand these young lads. Go out there and use a bit of common sense. If you've got half a brain in your head, work hard, treat your peers well, and you can do it. And really, that's my best advice to anybody out there.
Yeah, agreed. And the new generate the next generation coming through, I think they're they're a bit more health conscious as well than maybe some of the older generations, myself included, where they are actually spending more time in the gym and they're more focused on their health and well-being. So it's a lot of exciting times, and it is like I say, a great career for the reasons why you said, to travel the world and meet interesting people. I guess when you look back at your career, when you sit down and reflect upon everything that you've achieved, what's the one project that you think, in terms of your legacy, the one project that you're really proud of that stands out for you, and why?
I was lucky enough to be a director of MEP on Birmingham New Street. Um, Birmingham New Street was an incredibly difficult job. It's a subterranean, for people who don't know, it's a subterranean train station in the middle of Birmingham. It was a 1960s build. It was pretty horrible inside. It was very dark. And when I was at Mace, we came in to turn that into the flagship train station in the UK. It was the biggest project in the UK. I had 29 package managers working for me. Yeah, it was incredibly challenging, but also incredibly successful. It won all the awards, and yeah, I was very lucky to be on that job. But obviously, it came with a lot of tension, stress to get this done. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that was probably the flagship job for me.
That's one to remember for all the right reasons. So, and I guess moving on from there, I mean, you've like I say, you've worked on some huge programs, rail, obviously mission critical, data centers now is where you're spending most of your time, and the projects are getting larger in terms of megawatt capacity. So the values are getting higher. So we're now talking, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in terms of programs. So there's a lot of responsibility that you take on your shoulders when you're leading these types of programs. So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned along the way?
I think along the way, there's quite a few lessons learned that I'd like to discuss today. I mean, what I've seen from a hyperscale to a GC EPC sort of situation is that most of the big hyperscalers, and I don't want to name anybody at this moment in time, but most of the big hyperscalers have their own process and how they deliver things. When you take on a big EPC GC, which are used to doing jobs in the billions, they have their own processes and how they deliver things. And what I've found is that they don't marry up. Nobody looks at this at bid stage or framework stage to say, how does your process work against our process? And what happens is there's a massive misalignment, and nobody's even looked into that, what that means from a program point of view. Because if there's a massive misalignment, you don't understand what that means against program, which means you don't understand what that means against time and cost. And I've spent many of meeting where I'm dealing with VPs, trying to get them approve things from an authority point of view, because nobody will take the responsibility because it's out of their processes. And I think there's a great lessons learned there for any of the big hyperscalers to really look at this at day one and make sure that the processes actually line up. Because if your processes line up, yes, you could deliver the program, but if your processes don't line up, yeah. I'll give you an example of this. I was in the Netherlands. I was chairing a meeting with a massive EPC GC. They'd said that the hyperscale data center had told them that they've got to send 6 guys to Finland for a health and safety course. And could I sign it off? So let's just say it's going to cost €50,000. The hyperscale person that was running the job was on a course in America. He was on the I couldn't contact him at that moment in time. So the pressure comes back to me. I didn't have the authority to sign off that sort of money. And this happens all the time. And, it puts huge pressure on people trying to deliver projects when the processes, so the health and safety process of how they ask people to move around the world isn't set up. But it comes back to myself to sign off without the authority, and you'll get GCs coming to your desk with pieces of paper wanting you to sign it, and it's not correct. And then obviously that then gets delayed because I won't sign it, and you go through the merry-go-round again.
So that's obviously going to just delay your project, your program, cause confusion. So it's obviously getting that.
I mean, that's
And
just one. There's hundreds of these questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that lead into the pre-construction phase as well? Is that kind of similar, making sure that you've utilizing that pre-construction phase as well,
I think so,
processes and
because
getting.
if you think about this logically, if they wanted to do a certain amount of travel for courses, and it should be all listed out in pre-construction, and there should be a budget for it, and then there should be an approval process for that, and who deals with that. I mean, some hyperscalers there is, some hyperscalers there isn't. It just depends who you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's obviously mission critical. It gives it away in the title, critical mission. It's a high pressured
Yeah.
environment, and people often ask me about the differences between a mission critical project and a non-mission, and it's just the pressure from the different stakeholders, which is more intense, I guess. And as the lead, you're taking the accountability for you and your team, and it doesn't always go right. And you have very difficult situations that you need to navigate yourself out of. So, I guess what's the one sort of? Can you give us an experience or an example of a time when you was really tested, which the pressure was on you, it really did start taking its toll on you, and what you did to kind of get yourself out of that?
Yeah, so I was in the net. I'd just come back from Taiwan. I got sent to GRQ for a big hyperscaler. What I got there, and we were just about to start the piling situation, and they were wanting to use PC rigs, which is obviously, as you know, it's like a percussion rig that makes a lot of noise to drive the pile in. And when I read the environmental permits, the permits were at 63 dB, which meant that it was like a nature reserve. So you couldn't use anything of that sort of nature from noise. So I went back to the GC. I said, look, you can't use these rigs. They were like, no, we've got to do it to make program. I said, yeah, but you're not adhering to the noise levels and the permits that we've got to actually action this. So they went away, and we started looking for the screw pile rigs, and there wasn't any in the Netherlands, which was obviously quite a problem. The nearest ones were Ireland, and they were quite old rigs. So I asked them if we could look into buying the rigs, because we had multiple data centers to build, so it was like phased. It was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so we could just go through the piling all the way through, basically. What I found out, it was just over £1 million for these rigs. So I ended up trying to get this approved. Obviously, nobody wanted to approve this. I ended up driving to Belgium, to Mons, to speak to. Luckily enough, there was a seminar going on, and the top people from the hyperscaler were there. I went to see the lady who was in charge, and I explained everything. And this is where good communication comes in. So you explain everything to the top person. And she released £1 million to buy the rigs. And predominantly it was to save program, to keep the thing moving, and we could take it out of contingency, but it had to be approved at that sort of level. She was number 3 in the world at this particular hyperscaler. And so what happened was I got that approved, came back, and the piling went absolutely superb, which meant that the program, we didn't have any breakdowns, we didn't have any problems whatsoever, and the program flew. So what I'm trying to say is, you come across these problems, it's about how you deal with them and how you get past it and how you communicate that all the way up the line to getting approvals to actually making these programs tick. I think that's absolutely key to success, really.
Yeah, that stress that you carry around with you when you're kind of going through those issues that you have on projects. Do you take that home with you if you're kind of going through those tough times? It's something that you can compartmentalize and leave in the office, or do you carry it around with you when when you go
I'll
home? And
I'll be honest with
does
you.
your family
Uh,
notice that?
I'll be honest with you. I'd like to say I can, but I think about the job more or less all the time, because I'm
Yeah.
trying to work out the best solution that I can to deliver that project. So yeah, as I said, back to golf, back to doing some sport, back to going to the gym. I try and
Mm,
go do them things just to break that thinking about the job off, and
yeah.
that's how I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice. So obviously you've been around, and you've seen a lot of good leaders. You've worked for obviously different types of leaders, and I think we all look around and we take a little piece of everyone that we see good, and and try and make our own way through this industry. So what, when you're setting yourself up, and you look around, what do you think good leadership looks like to you?
I think leadership for me is good communicating, being able to talk and in a very calm manner when it can be a very stressful situation, taking complex matters and simplifying them. I think looking after your team, um, treating your team extremely well, back to empathy and making sure they understand you're there to help them, not to get rid of them, not to cause them trouble. When the pressure's on, I'm there with my sleeves rolled up to really help the guys. I'm not there to be the big boss banging the stick on the table going, why have you not got this done? It's how can I help you? My philosophy is I want to help you. Let's get this done. And what you find from there is, most people get on with it. I don't micromanage at all. I'm there to help them. I have my doors open. The advice is there 100%, but it's your job. You're getting paid to do that job, deliver that job. If you can't deliver the job, come see me and I'll take the pressure off you and I'll have a look at it and see what I can do to make it rock and roll. And that's really how I see good leadership.
Yeah, agreed. And it's quite um it's quite a situation that we find ourselves in still. We're in a modern world, digital engineering around us, and AI, and all of these smart technologies around us, but we still work in an environment that has mental health problems. And you mentioned people getting burnt out and turning to other recreational ways just to take the pressure off, which aren't necessarily so good. Um, and suicide as well, still across the globe in this sector. So apart from those points, where else do you see the industry falling short? What do you think we could do or should be doing about it?
I think the program side of things, from a hyperscale side of things, is needs to be looked at. I think that I talked about people running on red, as if you could take an analogy as a race car. A lot of
Hmm.
people need to sort of understand when the pressure's on, we need to stay together as a team. And there needs to be more wins within the program. And I don't want to see people failing because they're not failures because they've worked 14 hours a day for 14 months and they miss the date by, 3 or 4 weeks. These people are not failures. And I want the industry to really understand that we need to look after our teams better. And if this was 100 years ago and we were building a train station, the whole town would be out celebrating the fact that you finished it, not that you were 4 weeks late. And maybe we need to break these programs down into smaller milestones of completion and success and make sure that the team's always feeling that they're being as successful as they're going through the program. And yeah, I'm a great believer in that. I don't like the fact that you go to meetings and you're a failure after working, 14, 15 hours a day for years trying to hold this all together, the quicksand together. And then you get hit with all that in the boardroom. It's very poor from my point of view.
Yeah, so realistic programs that can be achieved definitely takes the pressure off the delivery team, because people are agreeing these dates that aren't necessarily on the construction sites, and then it's down to those guys. And from day one, they're on the back foot, and the pressure's on, and that's where burnout's coming from.
Yeah, because they genuinely 99% of people are trying to hit them dates. They're trying. They're
Mm.
throwing the kitchen sink at it to try and do this. And I think sometimes at the very, very top, they don't understand the people that are working for them. And that's my
Yeah.
honest opinion.
Yeah, agreed. Interesting stuff. I guess we've you've mentioned about obviously how you keep yourself in check. So playing golf, hitting the gym. So obviously keeping yourself mentally ready and sharp. Is there anything else that you do? Is there kind of any advice, like books that you read, podcasts, or how you kind of zone out and get yourself ready for the next chapter?
Yeah, so I watch a bit of Rick Shields. He's a golf sort of YouTuber podcaster. I quite like that. Yeah, I watch a bit of sport as well, which I like watching sport. You know, like the Masters has just been on. The Players is
Mm,
coming up at golf. I'm a Leeds United supporter, so I've suffered for many, many years. So I watch a bit of that as well. So yeah, I mean, obviously, sport is quite a big thing in my life, and I do watch quite a bit of that, to be fair.
yeah, Masters was good. I guess you look at Rory and the pressure he was under on day three, and then obviously how people like him, leaders, can turn that around. So it's testament to
Yeah,
individuals like that have the mental capacity to actually deal with that when you got so much pressure on you. So it's relevant, obviously, to the stuff that we've just been talking about.
yeah.
Um, so I guess you're looking back. So I guess a young guy starting in the industry, you're now a seasoned professional. You've got the lessons. You've delivered the projects, and you know a lot more now than you did then. So if you could go back to that young guy coming in, what's the one thing that you'd say to yourself, knowing what you know now?
So what I do know is that just about all problems can be solved. And I used to worry a lot when I was younger with problems that I couldn't solve. And the only thing about problems, and this is what I take away when I listen in meetings, and I'm under pressure, is look, you need to know that you've done your best before you go into that meeting, that you've worked hard on that. Whether it's a bid, whether it's dealing with the client, whatever it is, you've got to know in yourself that you've done the best job you can. And then it's back to, I suppose just knowing that you can get through these problems, and that all the problems I've had over the years, I've managed to get a solution to it. And it's only time and cost that actually comes into this. And when I mean that you can solve any problems, it's just time and cost, really. And the
Mm,
key true skill is to limit the time and cost when you've got a massive problem.
yeah,
And whether that is recruiting somebody, whether that's an engineering issue, whether that is a constructability issue, you've put the piles in the wrong place and we need to redo all this and get it all sorted out. It's about knowing that there's a way forward, and there always is. It's just a matter of limiting that risk, really.
yeah, yeah. Agreed. And I guess we've got young, we're trying to attract young, and young people, or a different diversification of people coming into the sector, that have got transferable skills, but certainly young people as well. It's not necessarily a sector that a lot of people turn to because there's more attractive sectors out there. So for young people who are considering a construction in a career in construction, and they want to get into leadership, what would be your advice to them?
I would say, come in, work hard, be truthful, build trust, and the world is your oyster. You've got to go and you've got to educate yourself. And I'm sorry to say that's really one of the key things. Make sure that you really understand what you're talking about, and that
Mm,
you can take that confidence about the fact that you know what you're talking about into the next steps of working with teams, understanding how you deal with manpower, understand how you deal with peers from right up at the top in the client's team to right at the bottom in the subcontractor team. It's really about understanding, how to do things and learn. And once you get all that, I think the world is your oyster. And I say you could work all around the world, have exciting
Mm,
adventures to Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, and get paid well. And potentially I've taken my wife with me and my children with me. My children can speak Chinese, so
mm.
they went to school in Hong Kong and Macau, and my daughter can speak Arabic because she went to school in Dubai. And from all these things, you can do this. Everybody out there can do this. It's just a matter of educating yourself, working hard, being truthful, and getting stuck in. And really, that's my advice to anybody out there who wants to come into, whether it's engineering, construction, data center construction, engineering, design. There's good jobs out there, and you could work all around the world.
Yeah, I see a lot of people coming in, certainly into the data center industry, and they do 12 months and then they believe they're an expert, and they go out and act like an expert, which isn't the case. It takes a lot longer to be a subject matter expert. So I think that is good advice. So learn your craft. It takes time, and as an engineer, you get something back in the day, time served, and you can't buy that time served. You need to serve it to get time served. So yeah, working hard.
Yeah.
And it takes time, but and it comes. So the more projects you deliver, the more pressurized situations you find yourself in, and that you get yourself out of, that obviously makes you a better leader, all round, I guess. We're obviously coming to the end of our time, really. I think we've covered a lot of really good points and some good nuggets there for people to take away. I've certainly enjoyed it myself. So yeah, really, I'd just like to finish on, we have something on Built From Within called the Hall of Greatness, and I'd like to welcome you into the Hall of Greatness. I think obviously you shared your journey with us. Um, what this podcast is about is recognizing leaders that don't just build projects, but they build people, culture, and standards. And I'd like to acknowledge you for being one of the true gentlemen and professionals, that I know you personally as well. So you always have time for others, and you always give up your time to help and coach people who need support. And that's a rare commodity, certainly with the pace that we're moving at, because people don't have time. So I'd like to acknowledge you for that. And you are one of the nice guys in the industry as well. And again, there's different types of leaders, but you manage to be nice and give up your time. And again, that's testament to you and the character that you've built and the reputation that you have in the industry. So yeah, it's an honor to have you in our Hall of Greatness. And yeah, thank you, Stephen, for sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. I really, really appreciate it. And I've enjoyed it today. I would just like to say, just before we finish, I'd just like to thank everybody that's helped me on my way. There's been a lot of senior managers that's gone out of the way, including you, Chris. I can speak of Callan, I can speak of Jan, I can speak of Luke in the Netherlands, John Phillips. There's so many, and you all know who you are. And it's just to say thank you. You've made my journey quite amazing.
Thank you for listening to Built From Within. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, share it with someone who's building, leading, or shaping the future of our industry, because the best leaders and the best projects are built from within.